All right. So I think we are live. Let's see. Let's make sure. Yes, we are live. Check that out. This is fun. This is probably one of the. Actually, let's backtrack that. Welcome in. This is the first live stream that I think I have done on YouTube, at least, because we've actually been doing some live master classes. But on YouTube, this is actually the first live that we've done on YouTube since I think 2023. No, actually before that. I want to say 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So it takes us way back. This is pretty cool. So the reason, or actually what prompted this, was I saw a video of a creator saying how easy it was for people to start live streaming on YouTube. And I thought to myself, and I'm usually checking out live streams from other creators and just different content that I check out. And I was like, you know what? Let's have some fun with it. Let's go live. And so welcome in as you guys are dropping and you guys are checking us out. This one right here is going to be a bit more laid back. So usually the way that I do my content is sometimes on, it really depends, right? Sometimes on Fridays, sometimes on Mondays, depends on kind of like what's happening in the business credit world or what's happening with the economy as a whole. We'll go ahead and record. And sometimes whenever we have a piece of content that's like time sensitive, kind of like what we saw with what was happening with the changes that were happening with some of the laws that were being updated by the current administration, and even with some of the Fed cuts that are coming up. One of the things that I was speaking to with my clients on our coaching call this week was actually that, and I actually made a post about it inside of our private community. And I said, hey, with some of these, and if you haven't been paying attention, so the Fed announced that they were going to be doing some rate cuts, and the way that affects us in the business element, there's a couple things with banking, and we can dive into that. By the way, as you guys are dropping in, yes, we are live. Drop those questions in the chat. Let's fire it up in the chat. Drop your questions because this is going to be interactive today. This is going to be completely unscripted. I just want to, again, have some fun with today's session with those of us that are on here joining me live. But the way that the Fed cuts are going to affect us, especially if you are in real estate, is you're going to have what's called cheaper money that you can borrow. So that's on the real estate front. And so usually the way that it works, and this is back of the napkin math, if you have, again, back of the napkin math, let's say if you have a 0.5 cut or a 0.5 interest that's cut, you have about a 40 to 50K in addition to buying power, which is pretty cool if you plan on investing in real estate. Now, if you are a business owner, which a lot of you guys are existing business owners that you guys watch our stuff, you guys have a business, maybe an LLC that you are looking to start, then for you, possibly for you, you're going to be able to get access to capital at a easier rate. And you're also going to be able to get capital that's going to be cheaper money. So it's a win-win. Now, it's expected that we are going to get possibly 2 more cuts going into 2026. And I'm actually pretty excited about that, if I'm being real, just because it does make it a bit, again, easier. And I use, quotations around the word easier, that we are going to, be able to get access to business funding. But I didn't just want to talk about those updates. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've just been seeing inside of the landscape when it comes to people getting access to business credit, and that is the following. One of the things that I've been noticing when people have been trying to get access to business funding is they are not set up properly. And so I want to break that down, like what that actually means. And so one of the most common mistakes that I'm seeing, and again, I'm just giving you real-time feedback of what I'm seeing whenever we're taking on clients. And so I'm sharing with you real-time data. So this way you can implement it in your own business. And so one of the biggest issues that I see with small business owners is we have some of us who maybe DIY'd our way into setting up a business, and then we have others who maybe paid someone to set it up for us. And the reason why this is so important, you guys, is because if you have a business that isn't properly set up, you can have the 800 credit score. You can have $25,000 in the bank, in the business bank account. You can have that cash flow that's consistent or that's consistently coming in. And if your business isn't structured in a way where it becomes the key term that I like to use internally with our clients and with our team, is if it is not attractive, the financial institutions, alternative financing, they're not going to want to touch you at all. And so, Irv, how do you actually make your business more appealing? Irv, how do you make your business more attractive? I am so glad you asked. And by the way, this is a dialogue. You guys are more than welcome to drop your questions in the chat as they come up. Yes, we are live. For some of you guys that are wondering, is this live? Because I actually posted this inside of my IG. Is this going to be something pre-recorded? No, it's going to be live. We're going to be having some fun. I don't know how many of these I'll do. I just wanted to have some fun today on a Friday and just kind of like experiment and kind of hang out with you guys. But the first thing that I always like to look at whenever we are taking a look at whether you have an LLC, a corporation, S Corp, C Corp, whatever may have you, I'm not the biggest fan of sole props. So for today's talk, I'll most likely just stick to an LLC, is I always like to take a look at the business address. Now, I have some contrarian thoughts on how to actually set up your business address. And if you've been watching my content for some time, you've heard me talk about this. This is going to be a fantastic refresher for you. If you've never heard me talk about this, then this is going to be eye-opening for you. There's essentially 3 types of business addresses that you can get when you're setting up your business, and you're setting it up in a way that is sexy, that is appealing, that is appetizing to a bank to actually want to say, yes, Mr. or Mrs. LLC owner, we want to give you capital. The first type of address is going to be the most common one that we tend to see, which is going to be a brick and mortar location. So that's exactly what it sounds like. That's going to be your maybe a gym location. That's going to be if you own a flower shop. That's going to own if you own a kitchen. That's going to be if you own maybe a real estate brokerage. That's a physical location. We don't necessarily have to dive too deep into what that is, but it's a physical location. The second type of address that you can set up for your company is going to be the virtual office address. Now, this is the part where I get a bit more contrarian to what you typically see out there, and people saying, hey, just pick any virtual office address, slap it on there. The cheapest one is the best one. Pick a $9 one. That is baloney. That is absolute baloney. That is detrimental to your business setup. I'm going to say that again. That is detrimental to your business setup if you just slap on any type of cheap address on there. I have videos that I've done on this where I go super deep into virtual office addresses. I think one of them is what's it called? It's called Don't Get Any Virtual Office Address. I think that one already has over, 10, maybe 15,000 views for it being such a niche video. That's quite a bit. But here's the TLDR on that. Here's a 30,000 foot overview on why selecting a virtual office address is actually going to be detrimental if you don't set it up the right way. If you have a virtual office address that is screened as a mailing agency, meaning it doesn't actually serve its purpose of it looking like a physical location, i.e., if I were to Google my address right now and it looks like it's a postal service and it looks like in the post and it looks like it's maybe at a shipping box or at a shipping store, does that count? No, that is awful. And what a lot of you guys don't realize, and maybe you guys are on this live checking this out, maybe you're catching the recording on this, is that you've been conditioned to believe that, hey, if I just slap on a virtual office address to my business, then it's ready to go. That's actually hurting your file. This is why when we're looking at a client, we're saying, hey, like everything else could possibly dialed in. You have your personal credits on point. Your business is actually generating revenue. You're a smart business owner, meaning you know how to service your clients. You know how to underwrite your deals. You know how to essentially make it rain. You're the rainmaker inside of your company. But the addresses was holding you back. This is most likely why. And so there's 2 main things that I like to look at whenever I am looking at a virtual office address. And I still have the third address that I want to give us when you're setting it up your business. But I want to give us this one just because this is a very popular one that we tend to see, not just with people that are setting it up, but also people talking about it. And that is the following. If you have the virtual office address, and number one, you do a quick Google search and it doesn't actually come up like it's a physical location, no go. Second, is if you have a virtual office address and it gets, I see you on there. Let's go. We got the comments going. What's up? Excellent content. I see you, YOLO. I see you. I'll get to you guys here in a minute. Don't worry. Keep dropping your questions inside the chat. I'll get to you guys. This is live, and so I actually prefer for you guys to engage with me because this is super fun. Real quick. So if you have that address that you look up, and it again gets screened as a commercial mail receiving agency, no go. Get rid of it. Swap it out. Run a business address audit. I'm going to give you a quick story on a client that we were working with. This file, when I tell you guys was totally dialed in, I'm talking they had their revenue was in place. So this was a deep 6-figure business edging their way into the 7-figure range. This business owner had a book of business. He had been in business for about 10 years. Here's the thing though. He had been running his business like many of us do, which is we have a client comes in, that cash comes in, and then we use that to pay for our next project. Money comes in, a deal gets closed, and we use that to fund our next deal. Money comes in from a client that pays us, and we use that to try to service our next client, run our next ad, whatever that is. That's fine until it doesn't work anymore. And so his constraint was, hey, I actually need to get business credit because I don't want to just keep relying on slow client payouts. And I don't just want to keep relying on having to wait for my payment so that I can make my next move, or even worse, using my personal credit cards to float the business. And so I said, okay, cool, let's put this into place. So when he brought on his business, he had used a registered agent. And the issue with sometimes using a registered agent address, which to some people, they're like, well, it's a virtual office address. In sense it is. But here's what ended up happening. When he brought in that virtual office address to us, it was attached to another location or to another business who had conducted business with that same registered agent, you guys. Catch what I'm telling you. Catch what I'm telling you, because this one piece alone helped this business owner get access to the capital that he needed just off this one change. And we're going to be diving into some other things here today, but we're still in the talks of the business address. He ended up going out. He ended up trying to apply for something as simple as a business checking account, and he ended up trying to apply for something as simple as a business credit card. And he got denied. And I said, hey, let me retake a look at your business address again. And then I started diving deeper. And I did a quick search on the address. Lo and behold, here's what we found out. We found out that the address that he was using, that he was renting out from the registered agent, that registered agent had rented out that address to a couple hundred other businesses, because that's just the nature of their work, setting up businesses. And there was one particular business who had committed a white collar crime inside of the address that he was renting out. So much so that when you went to go look up the address, it was all over the news. So it had bad media press. And then in addition to that, they thought, and when I say they, the bank, because I later told them, hey, go ask them why you were denied. And this is what they told him. They thought that he had created a shell company and he was trying to come back in disguised as that shell company who had previously committed fraud through that office location. Crazy. I know. And so we ended up swapping out his address. We ended up getting him a clean virtual office address. So he didn't need a physical location because he was doing things through a foreign entity. So he was actually operating outside of a different state. That's a completely different subject for another time. But lo and behold, that one change allowed him to get access to the capital that he needed. That's just one. Here is the third type of address, and that is the home office address. Now, a lot of us tend to set this one up. Again, contrarian belief here is you can still get a significant amount of capital, even if you use a home office address. I know that some people try to steer clear from it, and they try to force you into either getting a brick and mortar location, or they try to force you into getting a virtual office address. You can still get access to business capital if you have a home office address. Again, that makes sense for your line of work. Now, here's the caveat, and I'll give you like the two-sided coin to this, is if you do have a home office address that you set up for your business, part one is, are you okay with your personal information being out there? If you're not okay with your personal information being out there, then look at a virtual office address, right? So this is more from a tactical perspective of, hey, I just want to be a bit more, guarded, a bit more reserved. I totally get it. I'm the same way. The second time that maybe using a home office address wouldn't work for you is if you have a home office address And the type of business that you conduct, something else that we had to help a client with, is a type of business that they conducted wasn't congruent for them to actually be able to use a home office address. Irv, what does that mean? That means that if I have and I'm going to use the example that he actually he owned an auto dealership, a physical auto dealership. But what the way that he actually sold cars was kind of like, you know how it goes. Back a lot type of selling. As a car came in, he was able to do a quick flip with it. Obviously, we helped him get structured and organized with that. But what we ended up finding out with his specific state, he actually couldn't use a home office location to run that type of business. And so we actually had to help him get a full-blown address for it. Now, could you use a virtual office address for something like that? Sure. Usually in instances like that, at that point, you'd want to get a real location, like a real brick and mortar. So those are the three instances where I see people kind of screwing up when they are selecting the type of address that makes most sense for their business. And before I get to my next point here, I want to check out the chat. So YOLO Go Solo, what's going on? Says, what's up, bro? Excellent content. The new wave of business credit is going towards business bank account revenue required for approvals, especially with AI and Plaid. Yo, let's talk about that because, yes, this is true. Yes, I agree with this. We actually made a video, YOLO. You probably checked it out, man. We made a complete video on this. It's the most recent video that we have that dropped, I want to say it was either last Monday or last Tuesday. And so here's what YOLO is referring to. And so I want to give us context on this because this is super important. And I actually saw this from a comment. Whenever you see a big bank doing something, making a change, making a big update with their algorithm, that is usually going to be, let me make my screen bigger. That's usually going to be a nice key indicator with what's actually happening. So this is a litmus test, which I love the terminology that one of our subscribers said, which was that he said, hey, this is like when you see Chase doing something, this is a litmus test. Yes. And so what we're seeing in real time is Chase partnered up with a third-party company. And essentially what they're doing is that this is the same company that's underwritten for SoFi. And this is the same company that underwrites for hundreds of other financial institutions and lending companies through cash flow. Here's what that means for you, the small business owner. Here's what that means for us. It's going to be, again, a two-sided coin. Is that typically the way that underwriting worked, and again, we're going to keep it super layman terms just for the purpose of this example. Let's say that your LLC was dialed in and it was chef's kiss. Address was good, EIN was good, perfect industry classification. We're all good. Your credit sitting at a 750 to 800. You have over 5 trade lines on the personal side. You've been making your payments on time. You're sitting under 20% utilization. Again, I'm making the process as easy as possible just to really bring this point home. Typically, especially if you are under $4 million in revenue, the majority of the heavy lifting and the biggest lever that's going to be looked at in this instance is going to be personal credit. All things being equal, right? So we have that crew. Okay, perfect. Now what we're starting to see with Chase is they want to start underwriting based off of cash flow. And so they brought on this third-party company to start helping them with the underwriting, similarly to what we've seen with other companies like SoFi, where if you've ever taken like a personal loan from SoFi, sometimes they'll have you submit your bank statements. Sometimes they'll have you connect to your Plaid, which is a third-party software that takes a look at your bank accounts in real time. Like this isn't one of those stated income where you put, hey, this is how much my business is making. Hey, this is how much I have in my bank account. It's a party. Saying, okay, we're about to find out how much your business is actually bringing in. Go ahead and connect it with this platform called Plaid. And so that's exactly what's happening now with Chase. Now, here's the two sides to the coin. I'm going to give you the good, and then I'm going to give you the good, bad, and the ugly. The good part of this is that, and I see this all the time with some of the clients that we take on, and even some people, like when you guys are booking calls and we're taking on that call with you and we're taking a look at your profile, where you're at, what your business is doing, we let you know right there, hey, based on where your business is, like we can't help you out with how quickly you need the capital. There's going to be some things that we need to work on, or in some instances, we just have to turn down business altogether. The part that sucks about that, though, is that a lot of these businesses that we turn down, it really just comes down to the personal credit. Everything else is dialed in. They actually have the cash flow. They actually have the revenue. They actually have the staff. And I actually see this happen more often than not with established business owners, just because you've taken on risk, maybe you took on more debt than you should have, using your personal credit, whatever it is. So the good part about this with those type of business owners is that you're going to be able to flex the cash flow muscle that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to flex. I like this part. And that's why if you go back and you watch that video, we could probably pin it in the chat here. But if you go back and you watch that video, that's actually one of the points that I mentioned where I said, hey, this is actually good for small business owners who have the cash flow that they can utilize, because now they can kind of bypass just having to rely on their personal credit to get approved for business capital, or just having to rely on again, the biggest lever of their FICO score being at least a 700 in order for them to be able to get maybe that business line of credit that would allow them to keep the doors open. They have the cash flow. Now, the other side of this, because remember, there's always two sides to a piece of paper. There's always two sides to a coin. There's always two sides to the story. The other side of this is that we could see this shifting how underwriting works altogether. Here's what that means. If you have been seeing a lot of the ads or a lot of the things that are out there on social media with, hey, let's just go stated, doc, and let's put on there that the business is generating $500K, and I don't actually have to verify or show proof that the business is generating that. I just want to be able to get as much funding as possible, but you don't really have a plan. I think that this new change is really meant to weed out those type of, I'm going to call it what it is, those kind of entrepreneurs, where they think that just me getting access to business funding and me getting access to business capital is going to take my business to the next level. And no, that's not how it works. There's two big issues that I see happening in the marketplace when people want that quick fix where it's like, hey, I don't want to show proof of my income. I get it. There's a time and a place for a startup, but if you don't have an actual model either in place or a proven plan that you're going to be attacking, don't try to get access to business funding. It's like having a vehicle, a car going down the highway at 100 miles an hour and somebody takes the steering wheel out. It's extremely dangerous. And so what I typically see when somebody doesn't have a plan is they'll say, oh, I just want as much capital as I can get, but they don't actually know what they're going to do with it. And so the problem with that is that they are seeing business funding as an income source. And that's not what business capital is. That's not what business credit is. The way that you need to view business credit, which is something that I constantly talk to my clients about, and they get it because they're legit business owners. They're legit real estate investors that actually have a need for capital, is the following. It is adding fuel to the fire that you've already started. Again, I'll say that again. It is adding fuel to the fire that you've already started. You do not use business funding and you don't go after business funding to fix an income issue on your behalf, to start paying for things like your personal bills, to start paying for things like your personal expenses. If that is the case, go back and fix the model first. That's for my seasoned business owners. If you're just starting out, because I do, again, we give a lot of love to the existing business owners, but I also don't forget, I also have a lot of startups that watch our content, and I also have a lot of starters who are engaging with us inside of our private community, inside Inner Circle that we take on as clients. About 30, maybe 35% of them are startups. Is I always like to see a plan with a business owner or a startup business owner or a startup investor when they are applying for business capital. And the reason for that is, hey, I can do my job and help you set everything up inside of your business and help you stay up to date with the changes that are happening and stay up to date with what's happening inside of the economy and help you structure your next funding round, like whatever that is. That's just a byproduct of being around our ecosystem. But I always like to see let's say 50K, just to be conservative, just to use an easy example today. We're not doing too much thinking on today, right? It's Friday. 50K hits your account tomorrow. What's the plan with it? And usually when I ask that, when we're doing our onboarding calls with the clients or when we're doing our check-ins with them, is I like to see clear thinking around, this is what I'm actually going to do. I've thought this through. This is what I can do with the deals that I'm looking at. These are some of the deals that I've been underwriting with me and my team. This is how many clients I could potentially take on. Hey, I already have some clients that I've been taking on over the last 6 months. And so I know that if I added another 20 to maybe the marketing that I have, I would be able to service another 40. That's what you want to see. And going back to it, Irv, what does it have to do with the changes that are happening with Chase? That's who that's going to serve. And that's who that's also going to weed out. Because the other statistic that I don't think I mentioned in that video, but I'll say here, is that the default rates with some of those Chase Business Inc. products and some of those Chase Business Credit Card products are also at an all-time high. And so Chase realized, hey, we may need to put some more restrictions, or at least take a look at some different metrics on how we're actually letting people come into our ecosystem outside of just credit. Because although credit is an indicator, it is also a lagging indicator. It's not a leading indicator. Here's why. If I've done a good job at paying my bills on the personal side, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be a good business owner and I'm going to steward what's happening on the business front, because they're two different games. Now, they do play off of each other. I'm not going to say that they don't. They do play off of each other, because typically, if you've been really good with managing your money on the personal side, odds are you're going to manage your money, all things being equal, pretty well on the business side. Now, obviously, there's a component of what actually happens in business when stuff gets hard. We know that. But that's historically been a lagging indicator, which is why adding that cash flow element, that kind of evens out the playing field, and it creates a real-time feedback loop on what the actual condition is of this business owner. Do they actually have capital if and when we go to bill them for the credit that they've used? And is revenue coming in? Meaning, is there market demand for what they want? And so my prediction, again, this isn't stats. This is just based off of me taking a look at the data and running it through how I've just been seeing the market move and what I'm seeing right now in real time with business credit. My prediction is the following. My prediction is Chase is 100% running the litmus test. They are the biggest bank. There are no questions around that. If we start to see, or if they start to see rather, that they are starting to see a decrease in default with the people that they are extending business capital out to, you're going to see that model start to play out more often than not. You'll start to see the regional banks start to deploy that, i.e. Truist, i.e. Citizens. You'll start to see smaller banks start to play that out, Santander. You'll start to see maybe HTLF networks start to pull that. You'll start to see PNC. I would consider PNC more of a bigger bank, but you start to see PNC start to roll that out a bit more, start to play that card out a bit more, because it's all about risk mitigation. That's all this is. And so one of the ways that you can combat that, again, which is how I opened up this entire talk today, was making sure that your business is properly dialed in. And I'm going to take it a step further. You actually being able to articulate what your business actually does. What are the biggest disqualifiers whenever I'm looking to take on a potential client to help them out is when me or my team are talking to them and we ask them, so what's the business? What are we looking to work on? What are we looking to build? And what do you actually need the capital for? And they just don't know. And that's not that, that doesn't make them a bad person. It just puts them early in the process. And so usually I say, hey man, are you struggling financially right now? Like, are we looking to get business credit because we want to pay stuff at home? Because if that's the case, probably not the best idea for you to utilize this funding for. So I'd rather see it for somebody that says, no, there is a legit constraint in my business. I need more inventory. I need to pay my team. I need to drive more dollars into ads. Those are legit business constraints because it's going to drive more revenue on the back end. It is not a quick fix. And banks are realizing that, which is obviously why we're on this talk. YOLO says, we will be seeing multiple content creators switching to business credit and banking account churning, SMH. Absolutely. For some, yes, you'll definitely see it play out in real time. And I think for others, what ends up happening is bank rating and bank ratings, and if you guys have no idea what that is, bank ratings is essentially an internal score that banks are going to use to determine how good of a partnership you potentially are. And so the way that you build up a bank rating is a couple different ways, but I'll just give you two that you can just like note down as the following. If you have a bank rating, or when you're building up a bank rating, that just means that you look more responsible to the financial institution based off of how much cash you have sitting in their account. So the first way that you can build up your bank rating with either your bank or a bank that you potentially want to partner up with to get access to a business line of credit later on down the road, the first one is having deposits go into that account, right? Very simple. Set up a merchant, start making sales, have deposits go into that account. Give you an example. Set up a Shopify store, or you have a Shopify store, you have a local mom and pop shop, you set up the merchant, and then that processor goes to Wells Fargo. That processor goes to Chase. That processor goes to Bank of America, whatever it is, right? That's one way to build up your bank rating. The second way that you would build up your bank rating would be through using some of their products. And so there's two ways of doing this. You can either use their personal products. So if you already have an existing relationship with them, I say this all the time, is one of the banks that I have right now is I started using them all the way through my college savings account to the point where now I host one of my LLCs with them. That's the first way. Second way of hosting second way of using their products is if you get access to that first business credit card. A lot of us want to come out swinging for the fences, thinking that, hey, I need a $100,000 business line of credit, but we actually haven't stewarded a $25,000 business credit card just yet. Hey, let's at least use what we got. And so if it's a $25,000 business credit card, let's go ahead and use that first. Let's start having some organic spend. I love having some organic spend rolling through that. Let's actually start utilizing it. Let's start paying it, because what ends up happening on the back end is you build up that business banking rating, that internal score. And so, yes, to your point, YOLO, we will start seeing more people talk about it, which is good, right? We do want to keep people informed, but we also want to make sure that when you are looking at this data, when you're looking at this information, you actually know what to do with it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to jump on this live and just give you guys kind of like state of the union, what's happening with business credit, but then also some practical changes and updates that you can make inside of your own business that would allow you, and that would put you in a better spot than maybe how you've currently been running things. And real quick, shameless plug. If you guys need any help with taking a look at your business, taking a look at how your business has been structured, and then also helping you put a system in a place that allows you to get access to business capital in a predictable and a sustainable way, so that you don't have to rely on things like personal credit cards, you don't have to rely on things like cash reserves, you don't have to rely on expensive hard money, you can do so. I have it pinned as the top link. You can book a call with my team. That is totally free. We'll take a look at where you're at, where you're looking to go, and see if it's a good fit for us to work together and see what you have going on, to see how we can actually help you get access to some business capital. But here's the other thing that I wanted to mention. Getting access to business capital is like what I would consider the first piece to this entire thing, right? When we get around clients, I always like to look at how are they actually conducting their business. And so what are we actually doing with our business? Are we running ads yet? How are we getting clients? Do we have a presence online? Are you are you a local celebrity? Do people know you locally? Okay, how many employees do we have? What does overhead look like? That piece is important for us to know. And this is more so when we're actually working with the client, is because helping clients get access to business funding is just a byproduct of them obviously following our instructions, being guided by us, and obviously following the playbooks. That's relatively easy, right? That's going to happen. But I like to see 90 days down the road, 180 days down the road, so 6 months down the road, what systems are we putting in place on the back end that allows you to continue to scale, and then also allows you to continue to get your time back, so that you can focus your time on your zone of genius, which is super important. And this is something that I don't hear enough people talking about, at least in the business credit space, because it's always, what's the next funding move? What else can I get access to? How much capital can I get? What is this bank doing? One of the reasons why I've stayed away from just talking about banks and just talking about credit card updates is because I believe that anyone can just find that stuff online. Could I talk about it? Sure. Do I talk about it every now and again in content? Sure. I am more interested because I know because I've seen it serve people far better if we can show people how to actually think about how they get access to the business funding through working through models, not just these quick hacks. Apply for this, only do it this way, shut off these two bureaus. Those hacks are cool, but we actually have to know what the heck we're doing with the funding. And so that's why whenever we're building it out, I like to see, okay, hey man, we got access to 50K in capital. We use that example. What's working for you right now? You said as we're working for you, how many channels are those? Okay, got it. So we have Facebook figured out. You have IG figured out. Okay, got it. So how much per customer is your business bringing in per channel? So if we're looking at, let's say, Facebook ads, every time I make a post on Facebook or when I'm running ads, each customer pays me $250. But when I make that same post or that same call to action on IG, they pay me $700. That's data that I would want to know, because if I'm on Facebook and my Facebook clientele is paying me, let's say, $250, and I'm on Instagram and that same ad or that same promo or that same post is bringing in people that are willing to pay me $750, yes, I am going to start inching my way into where the LTV is higher, which in this case, the lifetime value of that customer is going to be on Instagram. Now, if it's on YouTube, it's on YouTube. If it's on Google SEO, it's on Google SEO. If it's on TikTok, it's on TikTok. But this is where we actually start to move away from let me just get access to this funding to survive to let me get access to this funding to build on top of what I already have going into motion. Cool. So I think that might be it for our live today. YOLO, appreciate you rocking with me here, man. Good questions and good points that you brought up. This was fun. I think we're about 30 minutes in. This was super fun. So I don't know if you guys have any questions, but I at least wanted to hit this video live with us just because I think that it is super important to see what's happening right now with the changes with the Fed and then also with the litmus test that Chase is running. But then also for some of my thinkers that want to think beyond, okay, well, I got the capital, now what? Keep that in mind as you're running your business and you're constantly auditing what's bringing you the most return on your time and what's bringing you your most return on cash. Because it's not just about getting access to the capital. It's about what we do with the capital. As always, you guys, take a look at that link. I went ahead and pinned it in the comments to book a call with our team to see how we can help you get access to business capital so that you can continue to grow and scale what you are already building and what you're already working on. But other than that, I appreciate you guys checking me out. I will see you either in the next live or in the next video. Bye.